So the first person that everyone's doing business with, even if they don't realize it, is...
Welcome to the Laws of Business podcast. Here, we will share the skills you need to make your business a success. Learn about goal setting, productivity, time management, marketing, and much more. Hear inspiring stories with today's best business leaders and join a hub of thousands of passionate entrepreneurs across the world. And now, here's your host, Jamil Jama.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Law of Business. I'm Jamil Jama, and I interview entrepreneurs that can help you to start and grow your business. And today we have a real special guest from Las Vegas, Nevada. She's a lawyer that's not just your typical lawyer because she's also your friend, Valerie Del Grosso. Valerie, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning to you as well, Valerie. Valerie, first of all, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. And before we start the interview, I just want to give everybody, I want to tell people more about you, basically. I want to talk about your biography.
Sounds good.
A short bio of who Valerie is and what she does. Valerie Del Grosso isn't your typical stuffy lawyer, and she certainly isn't interested in doing things the old-fashioned way, unless she has checked that there is a good reason for it. In life, this means her family wonders where she came from. As an attorney, this means her clients are happy to find her because she refuses to over-lawyer a problem or drag it out to earn fees. Whip smart, Valerie finished her undergraduate degree in 2 years and was a lawyer by the time she was just 23 years old. She has been practicing for over 9 years and owns her own law practice in Las Vegas, Nevada. She has extensive experience serving clients ranging from tiny businesses to household names. Valerie has gone toe-to-toe with fancy and super experienced attorneys, sometimes whole teams, and also regularly goes to court to see how different approaches pan out when the chips are down. That is, Valerie is willing to stand up for her work in court, not just hide behind a desk dishing out theoretical advice. But Valerie is not just your lawyer, she's your friend. She's also your friend, who just so happens to be a lawyer. In her personal life, Valerie is married, though you'll never meet her husband and may often question if he truly exists. She has traveled to about 20 countries and recently took up Olympic lifting as a hobby, which is pretty cool. Pretty soon her tagline will have to be your super buff friend who is your lawyer. Olympic weightlifting. So are you competing for the Olympics, right?
I would love to get there. Probably would be more like in the area of 2024. Not looking good for 2020.
Okay. Well, you're starting now. So you're preparing now, right? Which is cool.
That's right.
So if we fail to prepare, we have to be prepared to fail. But you're preparing, so you're preparing to win.
That's right. This one's the long range view here, 5 or 6 years worth.
Awesome. Good luck with that, Valerie.
Thank you.
So, so are you very competitive then, Valerie?
You know, it's funny. I'm absolutely not competitive about certain things, and then other things I'm just about as competitive as you could possibly be. And I can't really give you a good reason why one or the other.
I think with sports is also good for business because it's good to get into sports because sports, you're doing weightlifting which is basically a one man, one woman show. Do you have a team though?
I don't have a team, but I do have a trainer that is in tune with basically every move I make in my recovery and my mental state. And that's actually been a big change for me is that I'm very goal oriented, but sporting is process oriented. And so I've had to be patient and learn to slow down a little bit actually. So it's been great for me.
Yeah, I was going to say sports is similar to business because there's teamwork involved. Like you're working with there's coaching involved. You have to be coachable. There's hard work involved.
Yes.
There's goals, there's productivity. So it's similar to business. So if you're good at sports, you're going to be good at business as well.
I agree.
Awesome. So, but we're not here to talk about sports, are we?
Unfortunately.
We're here to talk about you and what you do, Valerie. So Valerie, you're a lawyer. But you're not a typical lawyer, right? You're also a lawyer that's people's friends. What do you mean by that? That you're the lawyer that's your friend?
You know, when I first started lawyering, I was young. I was 23, and the world economy had taken a turn for the worse. And I just found myself doing things for clients that I didn't have a connection with, and I was often fighting more in my own office and with my own clients than I was with the opposition, which is what you think you're going to be doing when you get into lawyering. And so this was really hard from a morale standpoint and just a what the hell did I do with my life standpoint. And as the years went on, I was able to sort of carve a spot for myself that I could actually help people and live with the work that I was doing. And also, I think traditionally with legal services, a lot of times the attorney is adverse to their own client because the attorney has an incentive to complicate things and drag things out because they get paid by the hour. And I was just deeply uncomfortable with that. So as I went on my own about 4 years ago, I was really able to turn that on its head and be an approachable lawyer who can actually give information that's actionable and that's in the language that business owners speak. And that sort of, I guess, is summarized as friendly lawyering.
Okay, awesome, Valerie. And Valerie, you talk about the 5 people you're doing business with, even if you don't realize it. So these 5 people is everybody doing business with them? There's 5 people that are everybody doing business with these 5 people that you talk about?
They definitely are, and that's a great question. And as I was kind of going through to think about how do business owners consume legal services and what's most helpful to them, I thought about it in a lot of different ways. And so sometimes I'll talk about the legal steps that are needed at day one, $1, and on your way to $1 million and beyond. Other times I'll talk about the 5 people that they're doing business with. And especially for newer business owners, I think that those 5 people are a great way to start thinking about protection from day one, even when you feel like your business is kind of small or, some of these things aren't going to happen to me. This is a really approachable way to think about what your legal needs are that actually applies as businesses scale. So I would say even Fortune 500 companies, these are the same 5 people that they're having to consider in their business decisions as people who are at day one.
Okay. So out of these, there's 5 people. Who's the first person or organization or people that everyone is doing business with, whether they know it or not?
So the first person that everyone's doing business with, even if they don't realize it, is their government. And with some upcoming privacy changes, pretty much everyone in the world is also doing business with the EU. And so
with upcoming what changes?
So there's some new changes coming down that will be effective May 28th that pertain to privacy and especially getting consent to take certain private information for individuals who reside in the EU, for people who do not reside in the EU but are planning to travel there and the business service relates to that. So the whole world is kind of watching right now because they're going to be the most stringent privacy requirements. And so that pertains to the government. Everyone's doing business with their government, and that's sort of an umbrella for the fact that we all have privacy obligations with respect to our clients and prospects.
So every business owner out there, you're doing business with your government, whether you know it or not. Well, I think everybody knows that because we pay taxes, right?
That's right. Yeah, people traditionally think of it in that respect related to taxes, but privacy is the other big one.
Many people know the government, that they're doing business with the government. So who else are businesses doing business with, whether they realize it or not? Who's the second one?
So the second one that might be a little surprising to people that they're doing business with is with their competitors. And sometimes I'll also refer to that as the marketplace. So what that means is when you get into business, you have to understand where you fit in the marketplace and who has come before, but also stake your claim to be sure that the people who come later can find you. So that's sort of the umbrella for talking about intellectual property protection, protecting your images, your content, your business names, but also being sure that you're not infringing on people who are already out there using those names and things.
And there's a quote about competition. This quote, I don't know who made this quote. The only person you should try to be better than is the person you were yesterday.
I've heard that.
I don't know who. Do you know who made that quote? Because I don't know who made it. The only person you should try to be better than is the person you were yesterday. So there is competition, but the most important competition is yourself, which is I think the third person you're doing business with is who is yourself, right?
That's right.
So yourself, that's the third person. And why would you say that they're doing business with themselves? Why is that?
So when I talk about doing business with yourself, ultimately, most people that I interact with and work with are getting into business because they are seeking some sort of impact or time freedom or just incorporating other life goals and circumstances into their business that would be different than if they were working for someone else, let's say. And a lot of times as new business owners, especially before you have a team and before you have, big numbers and you're scaling and all of that, sometimes the self can be lost somewhat. But it is true that business owners can do things like retire. Business owners can do things like have really favorable tax advantages. And most importantly, from a protection standpoint, they need to be sure that their business and personal lives are separate, both to protect what's in their personal life, but also to make sure that they are getting the fullest extent of limited liability in their company. So that's a little bit complicated, but the bigger point here with respect to doing business with yourself is you can't lose sight of the person who's at the top or in the center or however your organizational structure in your business works right now.
And the fourth one is what, your clients?
That's right.
And there's a quote: we want our clients to feel pampered beyond expectations. We want our clients to feel pampered beyond expectations. Do you agree with that?
I do, but the fact that the customer is always right, in the words of my own coach, does not mean that the business owner has no rights against their clients. So there's kind of this balancing act that happens.
And last but not least, who's the fifth one that we're doing business with?
And then the fifth one is your team. And the team, there's really sort of two pieces to be aware of. First of all, from an accountability standpoint, there can come a point where you build a team that is either small and therefore they have a lot of responsibility, or really big, but then that implies a pretty large system that now you have to manage. And so being sure that you have agreements and documents and just generally an understanding with your team about accountability means that the team can operate and do what it needs to do to deliver those seemingly effortless results to your clients. But the other piece of the team is that they're often seeing not only the methodology that you use to deliver whatever your secret sauce is, they're seeing the actual content itself. They know who your clients are. They know who your other team members are. And so they're very much in a position to see behind the scenes and to be able to replicate it and compete with you. And often that can happen in a way that is somewhat underhanded. And so again, you have to have the philosophical understanding with your team, but you also need to have appropriate documents in place because unfortunately, the team, a person on the team turning on you is not that rare.
Yeah. There's a quote: tough times don't last, tough teams do.
I do agree with that.
So it's important to get along with your team members, but as you're a lawyer, so you've obviously seen many teams turn on each other. Choosing the right team is very important. Obviously, how does somebody choose the right team?
So there's a legal piece to that, but there's also just a business piece. And I'll admit to you, on the business side, I am not an expert in choosing a team. I actually have sort of committed this year to learning more about leadership and what works and what doesn't. But from a legal standpoint with your team, as with anything, being sure that everyone is crystal clear about what their obligations are is at least a first step. And so that goes more to my philosophy in general. I kind of have a little quip where I say that best business practices will always trump your legal life support. You don't want to be paying me $400 an hour to stay up all night and figure out a problem that could have been prevented in the first place, had people just been really crystal clear about what they were supposed to be doing and what the expectations were. So as far as leadership goes, I think that translates that crystal clarity on the business side, and it just so happens that it also checks the box on a legal requirement that you have. Yeah,
one guy on YouTube said you should choose your friends like a football coach chooses his players. I think the same goes. I think the same thing applies in this situation, right? We should choose our team like a football coach chooses his players. Choose the best players, right?
The best, and the people who can actually work together, and who are, I think the selections have to be intentional. That's for sure. It's easy, especially when you're starting out, to say, oh, I like this person, or I already know this person, or they've had good results in this other setting that's not like mine, and that doesn't always translate. But still, by laying out what the expectations are, it's really easy to part ways. And from what I'm reading about leadership, being able to hire slowly and fire quickly seems to be one of the tools that the really successful leaders use.
So the most important thing is that they work together. They don't have to necessarily be friendly to each other, right?
That's right.
Because I don't watch basketball. I'm not a basketball fan, but I watch YouTube videos, and I saw that I was a bit surprised. Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman never talk to each other.
Oh, that's interesting.
They both play for Chicago Bulls, but they never talk to each other. They only talk to each other about work. Outside of work, they never talk to each other.
I've seen that work in practice, not necessarily with direct partners in a business, but definitely on teams. And I think in a way that's really an honest and adult and respectful way to interact for people who on a personal level are just not seeing eye to eye necessarily.
Definitely. And even though they never talk to each other, they still won championships.
That's right.
So you don't necessarily have to be friends, but you have to work together. You have to cooperate.
Definitely.
So Valerie, if anybody wanted to contact you, where can they contact you?
Definitely. So the best place to contact me is either on Facebook or on my website. And the things that we talked about today, you can actually see all of the agreements that correspond to those 5 people by going to delgrossolaw.com/library. Awesome.
So Valerie, really enjoyed this interview. I want to thank you so much again for taking your time out to do this interview.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
And if anybody enjoyed this interview, please let me know what you think in the comment section. Please also share it with somebody that you think this interview will benefit, and also subscribe. And I'm Jamil Jama. This is The Law of Business, and that was Valerie's interview, Valerie Del Grosso's interview. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Laws of Business podcast. Find out more about us on thelawsofbusiness.com. Thank you for being a part of our journey.